Good morning or afternoon, everyone. My name is Mariela Salinas, and I'm a marketing specialist here at Educate 360. Welcome to today's webinar, Intro to AWS GenAI, presented by our excellent technical instructor for today, Dean Tilton. We are in Zoom for today's session, and we will be sharing a recording with you in an email after the webinar. We do encourage participation throughout the webinar, so please go ahead and use that chat for any Q&A and any options for our short Q&A after the presentation. Educate 360 is so excited to present this webinar today, so without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Dean.
Great, thank you, Mariela. And I'd like to welcome you all for joining us for this brief introduction to AWS's generative AI. What I'll be doing here is I'm going to be sharing my screen with you all, and near the end, do a little demonstration to see what it actually looks like. So for that, you might see me looking over to one side. I actually have two monitors, one monitor dedicated specifically for screen sharing. And so with that, let me go ahead and bring that up, and we'll go through the topics, and then we'll have an opportunity to see a little demonstration of using it in the AWS Management Console. In the last few minutes, we'll allocate for any questions you might have. So with that, let me go ahead and stop sharing that window and pull up here our other screen. There we go. Our intro to AWS Gen AI, or generative AI. We'll be addressing the matter of describing the basics of generative AI and several cases where you can use generative AI, its importance, as well as risks associated with it, and of course, the benefits. Now, to provide its proper context, generative AI, you can see down here, is really a subset of artificial intelligence, which has actually been with us not just several years, but actually several decades. With artificial intelligence, we're describing technologies that mimic human intelligence. Now, a subset of that is machine learning, and we'll have a separate slide to describe that one. A subset of machine learning is deep learning, which uses something known as neural networks to handle massive quantities of data. And a subset of deep learning, generative AI. Now, to go through briefly each of those four, again, providing it its context, mention that AI, artificial intelligence, technologies that mimic our human intelligence, it allows us to create self-learning systems. And these systems can derive meaning from underlying data, then apply the knowledge from that data to problems in a human-like way. And there's a lot of examples. Some of them they mentioned here include responding meaningfully to human conversations, for example, like with a chat box, making decisions based upon real-time data inputs, creating original images and text. For example, taking samples from an artist, various images, and from that input, generating new content. And actually, it's that creating is what they mean by that generative AI. You're generating new content. Machine learning, a branch or subset of AI, is concerned with development of algorithms. Now, algorithms are basically those formulas to perform tasks without being explicitly instructed to do so. A more technical view of that definition, it's going to create models. So historically, machine learning would be comprised of a series of if-then statements. If this is true, do this. If that is true, do that. Instead, and that's actually early machine learning systems were developed that way. Instead, machine learning creates models that are trained on vast quantities of data to derive the rules based upon the data. The developer, the programmer doesn't have to explicitly state the rules, but those rules are derived. That's what they mean by the algorithms. Now, deep learning, a subset or branch of machine learning, very interesting. It mimics the way we think, the way the brain processes information. And it does so by using what are known as artificial neural networks. So this is inspired by biology. Examples include natural language processing, computer vision. Perhaps you've seen these unmanned vehicles, cars, self-driving, making decisions. And generative AI, a branch of deep learning for creating. And so that creating, that means generating new content like conversations, stories, images, videos, music, code. See example of that one here in just a bit. In practice, it can be used for summarizing content. A specific example in the healthcare. Here's a use case where a conversation between a patient, a client, and the physician would be recorded, and through generative AI, it could be summarized, generating new content, like the example I mentioned with the artists. Code generation, well, it used to be called Code Whisperer. They recently, as of the end of April, renamed it to the Amazon Q developer, but it can substantially reduce the amount of time it takes to create a software solution by generating the code for the developer built into their integrated development environment, provide responses to questions. So websites that will have an area for help, you can submit the questions. Generative AI can then produce a response. Well, here are listed some other use cases. In the healthcare industry, I described one, the digital scribe, personalized medicine based upon your medical condition or history. In the life sciences, drug discovery, protein folding predictions, very interesting, to discover new sequences, protein folding for future medications. In the financial services, ones like fraud detection and others, just to mention some examples here. In manufacturing, product design, optimizing a process to improve it, preventative maintenance, material science. Let's say, for example, in the aerospace industry, always looking for ways to develop new materials that are, let's say, lighter yet stronger by combining certain alloys together. The retail industry, optimizing pricing, virtual try-ons, store layout optimization. A new product is released. Where's the best place to put it? Okay, so maybe an obvious example would be, let's say you know, a new salad dressing is developed. Well, maybe we ought to place it next to the lettuce, things like that. Product review summaries and media and entertainment, generating entirely new content, virtual reality, news generation. Now, these understandably could have some and would have some concerns, risks. These two slides will indicate some of those. For example, a bias being introduced. The models that are used for generative AI based upon those large quantities of data, they should treat all variables equally with the absence of bias. Now, bias can be a bit subjective. Let me just make note here that programs, actually, let me just temporarily stop sharing to say just a brief word about this. All programs, no matter what language they're written in, they're basically made up of just two things, data and code. Now, historically, the big concern has been with the data. The data is corrupt. You basically have garbage in, garbage out. So in databases, they want to ensure that the data is scrubbed, that it's valid data. Otherwise, you get a bias. You get incorrect information on which you'd make your decisions. Well, with artificial intelligence, particularly like machine learning, you're introducing another factor that's a concern as well. Not only does the data have to be valid, but whoever wrote the algorithms, if the algorithm is biased, you may have valid data, but the output is skewed one way or another. And that could be, now it could be unintentional, could be, well, anyway, there's things to be aware of. Okay, let me go back and share. Okay, bring that up here. Others have to do with privacy. So the models, they call them foundation models, these large neural networks containing vast quantities of data. Well, you can integrate your own organization's data as well. But there's some concerns about personally identifiable information. Now, there are mechanisms to help exclude that or hide that, but it's important that it's not exposed, that private information. Here's a list of some other concerns. In generating new content, concerns with toxicity, where, and again, this could be inadvertent, generating inflammatory, offensive, or inappropriate content. What might be quite appropriate in one culture is completely inappropriate in another culture. For example, certain hand signals. It's like, well, that's fine, but in another culture, like, what? Don't do that. Hallucinations, interesting here. So a definition for hallucinations in the context of AI, an inaccurate response. Recall that this is all being trained on underlying data, large quantities of underlying data. They create models that are derive these rules, these algorithms based upon large quantities of data. A hallucination is an inaccurate response that's inconsistent with that trained data. It's inaccurate. And maybe you've already encountered that. Maybe in doing a search with your, whatever your favorite search engine is. The exposure of intellectual property. Violations, regulatory violations, exposing that personally identifiable information. And there's some other concerns as well. Now, of course, the context of this session is AWS Generative AI. AWS is a cloud service provider with data centers located globally. So not just here in the US, which they're mainly located in the East and West Coast, their data centers. And by the way, that's the cloud. When we talk about the cloud are those physical data centers housing racks and racks and racks of servers, typically between 50 and 80,000 servers per data center. Well, different countries have different regulations when it comes to what's acceptable as far as data exposure. For example, in Europe, they have something called GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulations. And some of theirs are more stringent than here in the US, if you're here in the US. So what might be completely valid in one country may be a violation, a breach in compliance in another. And probably this one you're aware of, plagiarism and cheating, um, like, generating a report for a school assignment, things like that. So these are some concerns, some risks. Some of these are pretty big, concerns here that we're dealing with. Now, this next slide is simply, and I'll just quickly go through it, just listing so that you're aware of it, some various AI services. Now, some of them are not necessarily generative AI. The following, I think, 4 slides will be specific to generative AI, but just to expose you, and then I'd like to do a little demonstration. We have services for converting text to speech and speech to text, extracting text from scanned documents, providing aggregated searches across multiple data repositories, Amazon Kendra, facial and product recognition, personalized experiences, interactive chat boxes, gaining insight into what appears to be a noise of data, fraud detection, and Amazon Connect with contact center services to deliver improved or even superior customer experiences. Oh, excuse me. Sorry about that. Just needed to clear my throat. Now, let me show you some specific examples with generative AI. Now, again, up until the end of April, this was known as Code Whisper. It's Amazon Q Developer, which can generate code for the programmer. They state here, oops, that's looks like it needs to be brought to the front. 25% more likely to complete tasks successfully, 57% faster. Now, again, as a concern, I would want to know, you still would want to analyze the code that it's generating. Again, there's a degree of trust in here. Can I trust? I can't answer this question, but can I trust the output there? So you would want to, I would review it at least. Other services like Amazon Bedrock. This says exposes both Amazon's and other leading AI companies' foundation models. So those are those neural networks used in deep learning comprising vast quantities of data to help you quickly build an AI solution. Like one for, again, sorry, let's move that to the back. Like for chat boxes, text queries, and responses via text, or you submit text and it'll produce an image. So you say tiger, it shows you an image of a tiger as an example. Amazon's SageMaker Jumpstart. So there's a variety of various foundation models. Some are optimized for certain disciplines, certain industries, for images, for text. And so in developing an AI solution, we want to choose the appropriate foundation model. Amazon SageMaker Jumpstart allows you to discover and evaluate those various foundation models to see which one would be appropriate. You could even create your own for your AI applications. And AWS's Health Scribe. This one allows you to transcribe medical or to implement AWS's Transcribe Medical with the generative AI capabilities of Bedrock to, as I mentioned earlier, transcribe patient clinical conversations, and generate easy to review clinical notes. I'd like to do a demonstration of that here in just a moment. This one's a particular interest because my brother-in-law actually had inquired about this. His company's involved in the healthcare industry. And Amazon Q Business, which has been described as the future of work, allowing you to create generative AI-powered digital assistants without any coding, answering questions, generating context, summarizing content, completing tasks, and it is integrated with popular applications like Jira, Salesforce, SharePoint, Teams, Gmail, and many, many others. Some 40 plus connectors. All right, well, let me go ahead and I'm going to pull up here. I've logged in just to show you a few examples of some enabling technologies like transcribe, where you can, okay, so here, I'm going to start streaming here. Welcome to Paris. So there you can see it's generated some text based upon my verbal instructions. I'll now go over to Amazon Translate, enter that text. And of course, all this can be integrated. Oh no. Okay, let's reload it here. Take two. All right, here we go. Let's try it again. Welcome to Paris. And of course, now I could automatically detect it. I'm going to say, no, it is English. And I want to see what's this going to be here in French. And you can see it's already generated there. I don't know how to pronounce that, but I'll take that as that's the French. And then I'll turn around and we're going to do just the opposite with Amazon Poly. I'll need to use Neural for this particular example. Now I'm going to change the one that they have. Oh, wait, it's supposed to be, I don't think I copied it. Excuse me, I was supposed to copy the French. I don't think I copied it. Let's try that again. English, French. I'm going to right click on it this time, make sure I've got it copied. There we go, copy. And head on over here to Amazon Poly. I'll put there the French, and I'll say it's coming from English. Oh, actually, no, this case, I'm going to tell it's going to be, I want you to read it here, French, and we'll use Remy here. I don't know if you're going to be able to hear. Let me turn the volume up a bit, see if you can hear this here.
Bienvenue à Paris. Bienvenue à Paris. Bienvenue à Paris.
I hope you could hear that. I think there's some really interesting things you can do with this. You can add XML tags that allow you to change the rate, introduce pauses. So here, I'm going to use here this markup language. And let me do it one more time here. This should slow it down and pause it.
Bienvenue à Paris. Bienvenue à Paris.
Bienvenue à Paris. Okay, I got myself a little tool here. I can combine those all together. You know, one other one here, I do have a minute. I can squeak this one in here. Back on Amazon Transcribe, let me show you that one with the healthcare. They give a little demo. It's called Medical Insight, where they've recorded a conversation between a patient and the doctor, which you can listen in on.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Parker. What brings you in today? Hi, Dr. Parker.
So that conversation would be recorded, let's say, saved as an MP3, and then it can be analyzed. So you upload it into your S3 account, and then you can analyze it, and it'll produce a transcript. This is actually what my brother-in-law is after here. It'll produce a transcript and even provide insight to summarize it. Very nice feature. This is anyway, for him at least, a very desirable quality that he's after. Well, looks like that actually takes us right up to our endpoint. We do have, if you did have some questions, you're welcome to post them there. In the chat window, here, let me stop sharing that window and bring up here. There we go. I want to thank you for taking the time here during this Lunch and Learn, our introduction to generative AI. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to post those. And again, thank you for your time.
Awesome, Dean. Thanks so much. We had one quick question here from Daniel. Is HAL 9000 from the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey an example of deep learning or a different category of AI? I thought that was such a fun question.
Well, that is a good question. It's been a while since I've seen that movie. Uh, it would be, I think it would include deep learning, and probably even more, based upon the sci-fi context of that particular show. So anyway, that's my personal take, because it looks like the Hal was able to actually learn based upon what was included in his, I guess you could say, database of information that was available, and make decisions to complete the mission statement of that launch.
Excellent. Awesome, Dean. Well, that was it for us. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for all this fantastic info. And thank you all so much for joining us, say, to our audience. If you had any more questions on this topic, please do not be afraid to visit us at newhorizons.com. And if you missed out on any part of the session, you will get that copy in an email after the webinar. Thanks, Dean.
Thank you. Take care.
Awesome. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone, and we'll see you soon. Bye.